that they follow the Quran. This is why God says, right after denying, disbelieving in God's revelation, says nothing is concealed from God. Because He knows what their hearts are doing, whether they are really believing or not. And based on that, they are isolated from Quran. They cannot see it. The other points were covered very nicely by Latifa. The allegorical verses are things that we may not be able to understand or fully comprehend yet. There were generations who didn't understand what God meant by the earth being egg-shaped. That didn't make sense to them. And had they wasted their time trying to interpret that, they'll just do that, waste their time. And they may end up confused. There are things in Quran now that we cannot comprehend. So God reserves these to future generations. Because every generation has to see something new in the Quran. But for our purposes, we have a certain understanding of them. And we have to be content and satisfied with those. As long as we're not digging and causing a lot of confusion. I mean, it's perfectly right to study the Quran and try to understand everything without confusing ourselves. The past generations, for example, they didn't understand what the number 19 meant. They had no way of knowing what the number 19 meant. So God gave them a temporary understanding that they are possibly the gods of hell. 19. But after the number 19, God gives a general statement that the gods of hell are angels. It's just a general statement. And that statement served to give them a satisfactory interpretation at the time, or understanding. Because God knows that it is not important whether the people know if hell is guarded by 19 or 19 million or what. It's not a crucial thing to the doctrine or the worship of God alone. At the end of verse 7 here, it says, indeed, only those who possess intelligence will take heed. People who do not heed the Quran, people who do not believe in God, or people who do not worship God alone, they have to be stupid. They are not intelligent. When God, who is holding the 7 universes in His hand, and they leave Him and they seek the wisdom of a human being who lived on earth 100 years, who was very tiny, helpless, that has to be stupid. When God has only created the heavens and the earth, the sun and the moon, and He knows what the sun and the moon are doing, but they go seek the wisdom of a man who didn't know that where the sun is coming from, for example. The sun rises every day from the east. They used to think it's a new sun. And you don't blame them. That was the extent of their knowledge. But to go to them for wisdom, that's not intelligent. So only those who are intelligent will worship God alone. 8 and 9 are wonderful prayers that you can use anytime. Well, say to those who disbelieve, you will be defeated, then end up in hell and the miserable abode. And the book of the Quran and Hadith that you'll see at the end, an advertisement for the book itself. We just put it in the bag. And it asked the question, does it make any sense that 3 million Israelis consistently defeat 150 million Arabs? Consistently. I mean, even on the physical level, it doesn't make sense. But this is what God says in 12. Because those people were given the Quran. When you are given the Quran, your responsibility is immediately doubled. There are people in this country who come to Islam and they come to Quran and then they end up following Hadith and Sunnah. These people are in bad shape. They are much better off as Christians, worshipping Jesus. Because when they are handed the Quran, where practically every page says worship God alone, don't go to anything else, then the responsibility is multiplied manyfold. The Quran is a fantastic blessing or a fantastic disaster, depending on if you uphold it or not. So the Arabs were given the Quran and they chose to abandon it. That's disastrous. They don't need it. So number 12 applied to them. Say to those who disbelieve, you will be defeated, then end up in hell and the miserable abode. This is God's promise, and it doesn't matter what the physical statistics say. You may be 200 million, but you disbelieved God when He said the Quran is complete and perfect. You will be defeated. Doesn't matter how many you are, how rich you are, how many weapons you have, how much weapons you have. There are 200 million Arabs, and God gave them so much wealth just to make all the physical statistics on their side. Yet they keep losing, consistently defeated. And it's because they abandoned the Quran. The Quran is in their tongue, in Arabic. But they don't need it. Mujahid demonstrated that to them last night. That which words do you take? You take the words of God or the words of someone who said that the Prophet said? I go a step further. I say, do you take the words of God or the words of the Prophet? If the Prophet walks through this door and shows you his passport, proving that he is Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, and he tells you something that's different from the Quran, you're going to take the words of God or the words of Muhammad? I would put the question that way. But of course, Mujahid was trying to prove to them that the hadith is not even Muhammad's. The hadith is not Muhammad. As you will see in the last page of that book that is coming. I said Muhammad's hadiths are not Muhammad's. They are the hadiths of people whose grandparents, even the grandparents of their grandparents, never saw the Prophet. This is what really hadith is. So Mujahid was trying to prove that point. Do you follow what God said, or do you follow things that were said by people who said that the Prophet said?
Yeah. Among those 200 million Arabs, I'm sure if somebody shows them the truth, I'm sure so many of them will see the truth.
No, but they'll kill him first. So he will not survive to tell it.
Some other way, not. I know what you're saying. It's true also.
Yeah.
They will let
I can't
you
say
right away. But there must be some way.
Inshallah, God will find a way. Latif.
We were talking the other night with the Christians and they were talking about like Peter, Paul, Job, etc. What they said Jesus had to be able to say. Couldn't that be considered like hadith?
Yeah.
Or is hadith?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not the hadith of Jesus either.
It's the hadith
It's the hadith of Mark
Seven
Luke,
generations.
Matthew, and John. That's what the Gospels are. These are the canonized books. They're canonized because in the conferences of Nicene, they collected all the scriptures of Jesus, the true and the false. And they canonized these four and burned everything else. And they established the doctrine of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And if you don't believe it, you go to any encyclopedia or even some dictionaries under Nicene. Yes.
I have a book at home. That book tells you time of Byzantine.
Right.
The Byzantine is ordered, to burn away. He wants to, worship. There were Christians in Egypt and somewhere. They were worshiping one God alone, and they said that Jesus was messenger. Emperor got mad.
Well, even nowadays, we have these 6 great Christian scholars, Muslims. I mean, they are very respected scholars who wrote the book, The Myth of God Incarnate, and they're censored and cussed and everything by the rest of the Christian world. But verse 12 explains the defeat of the Arabs. Wadi, you want to compete with Latifa and take take the next page. She's a tough act to follow, but you can do it.
An example has been set will be by 2 armies, 2 flags. One was fighting in the cause of God, while the other consisted of disbelievers. They saw each other twice as many, for different reasons. God supports with victory whomever He will. This is a lesson for those who can see. Adorned in the eyes of the people is the love of